Good day and good evening. Well, in the first part, we're just exploring the background as to what I think the. Okay, when you think about, when you conceptualize society as having four social functions and having four social boundaries, at the uppermost layer, at the universal layer, you'd have some form of sphere of universal concern. And there, I think that's where the realm of religion would fall, that's where the realm of ethics would fall, and they will have a set of institutions, right, that would tie, that will literally cover and deal with the spirit of the people and that which they are to become. And that the bishop is the one of the bishop is the leader or the head of this institution. He's the one that seeks after the universal. If you think about Eastern Europe, that's pretty strict law was assigned to the clergy, right? And when you examine Christendom, the clergy were universal, right? They were everywhere. They were serving the various kings and the various communities and the various peoples, right? They were that which united the spirit of all those people, the ones who were tied to the brotherhood of mankind, so to speak. And when I made the videos about class segregation and decay, and when I was defending academic agents' positive vision for the right, I think I alluded to some of these ideas as to why this institution is important and what it looks like. And when you think about it, you would realize that there seems to be an institution that seeks to usurp this role that is supposed to be played by this institution that ties everyone together. And I think because those institutions set themselves up as political and mediatory, I think by claiming that role, by claiming that position, they render themselves illegitimate. And particularly I was thinking about the United Nations, the European Union, the African Union, and possibly some institutions that some leaders have set up in particular local contexts. So one, you see that they set an agenda and a vision for mankind. That's a universal agenda. That's for all mankind, right? You can limit it in the particular region, for all Europeans, or for all African nations, right? So they have this universal vision, and then out of this vision they propose certain solutions. So whether you're talking about the Great Reset, or some form of neoliberal woke feudalism, or some Marxist Pan-Africanism, right? Or some pseudo-Islamic, some sort of, some pseudo-Islamic stroke ethnic vision of a series of nations, right? They're all setting up this universal view, like there's certain values, certain universals, that values that everyone has to adopt, and they will guide the vision. So they are the ones who apparently are perceiving into the spirit, and they are able to see the direction that all the people should walk towards or head towards or go towards, right? I think that was this Keith Woods video. Okay, I don't remember which it was, but then when he talks about the three stages of capitalism, right? I think still ties to this whole idea of this false priestly class. So there's this pseudo-religion, right? So you want to do the work of religion without being a religion, without doing all the legwork, the philosophy work, right? So you want to have this substitute. It's like you want to have religion, right? Because religion, for Rene Girard, is that which will tie us together, that which will bind us together. And so you want to have this artificial bond, right, that will tie the people all together and guide them towards a common destiny, guide them towards an ultimate concern, right? And you find when people start absorbing those ideas, so when people talked about a cucked Vatican, right, and we contrast it with the Jesus paradigm, why do people feel that they have a problem with a cucked Vatican, right? It's because that there's a much grander function they should serve, rather than being a tool or an instrument of this other political order or entity. When you're thinking about when you work with the Borgia popes, right? So they were co-opting this universal institution and its authority, and they're trying to use it for their own squabbles, right? Political squabbles, political struggles. So stepping out of the realm of the universal, and you want to take this universal thing and to use it to gain an advantage into this community level thing, right? And so that approach is, well, it's clearly a co-opted institution if that is the case. And then when I compare it with the Jesus paradigm, where he's just about, when he said that my kingdom is not of this world, right? And then he's still accepting that, yes, I am a king, but the kingdom, the type of kingdom I'm looking to build, because Jesus' vision is a vision for all mankind, right? And he is the animating spirit that will unite all mankind under this one ethical framework that surpasses any other ethical framework, and one religious framework that surpasses every religious framework, that is able to seep into a culture, into a community, and it's able to suck out all the anti-spirit elements within that culture, and it can leave behind the culture that can be allowed to last forever without being considered an aberration, right? And so actually, particularly, say if we look at the in Genesis, the passage when he's talking about the flood, talking about how the meditations of the heart of man was continually evil, and because of that evil, God could not allow that culture to last any longer, right? I think that's in the Old Testament, the whole notion of judgment, where a culture that is so corrupt and is so decayed, such that God can no longer allow it to exist anymore, right? The benefits of the existence of this culture become like the harm coming from the culture is so bad, you can no longer justify the good that can come from that culture. And I think when I was watching, there was one stream by the Franklin when he was talking about something that black-pilled him when he was thinking about the state of Australia. And I think this can serve as hope for him, right? Like the Jesus paradigm can be a hope to those of considered black pill, right? And looking at just it's just adding further, let's say, fuel to the fire. Try to argue to further add another point as to why I would think bodies like the UN and EU and AU are illegitimate in that which they're trying to accomplish. Consider Japan and Germany, right? And you look at the golden, like their golden years, right? When you look like the peaks of the historical greatness, and you compare it with them now, and specifically if you think about the quality of the citizens that they're producing, the state of the heroes that they produce, right? And you can do the same with various civilizations, right? You can think about Congo, you think about the British, the Dutch, the Swedes, the French, the Americans, right? And also you can compare with some of the political moves that were made by some of these civilizations, right? Like what was done to the monarchy in Madagascar and Hawaii, right? The choices that various functions decided to take during the Rwanda civil war, the role that different entities and institutions played in the Syrian civil war, the Libyan civil war, but Syria can still work out, right? And the powers and the authorities that some people seek to retain and attain, right? So you think about the Security Council and the veto power. All these are markers, right, that, so these institutions, I think, are placing themselves in the role of the priest, and they're placing themselves in the role of the church. And because by their own utterance that this is not their goal, this is not their mission, they render themselves illegitimate because these are not the bodies that are meant to serve that function. And so I can shift to a rhetorical attack on these particular institutions, right? Whereby they would talk about seeing a problem, but dependent on the patronage network, like this patronage network that are set together, and they are pouring resources to solve whichever this problem that they're aiming to solve. They even have metrics by which they measure what they would consider core progress. Then and again, if you look at the standard of if the goal of the institution that stands in the place of the church or in the spirit of religion, and they're the custodians of truth, right? and they're the custodians of virtue, right? They're the arbiters of the good, right? The good, the true, and the beautiful. And we start comparing the outcomes of what they produce. When you see that disconnect, right? What happens is that options for subsistence for people disappear. Why is urban poverty such a problem? So let's say if you compare Uganda in the 1950s and you compare the modern one, right? So in the 1950s, perhaps you're not connected to the national economic network. You're not connected to the banking system. You're not doing well in school. You still had places where you could hunt. You still had places you could forage, and you still had places that you could farm. So there are multiple options for subsistence, and from that option of subsistence, you can now build into other things, right? But then if you look in the modern world whereby there's serious control of credentials, right? And there's always this promise of comfort that if you just follow and you flow through the system, this is what you'd get in the end. We find that it's not the outcome that we so desire. And so these illiberal institutions come and supplant the priestly class of the cultures that they are practically invading, and they lodge themselves as this new priesthood. And it's simultaneously a priesthood and at the same time a priesthood and monarchic force, right? It's not, and a monarchic force simultaneously. And what happens is that the promise does manifest in a few, but the majority will not be able to participate in this goal, on this dream, on this promise, right? And so it's like if you imagine the medieval or the feudal world, whereby you promise everybody can be a lord, right? If they follow this set of steps. But then in practice, what will manifest is that everybody will be a peasant. So if I was to, use analogy to rhetorically attack these institutions, I think that's how I would do it. But then now I'd contrast it with what I think that the proper priesthood and the proper bishop would look like. And it comes from the 23rd chapter of the book of Psalms, which I think describes the whole, it summarizes the whole thing quite well, right? And it goes such a, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He lays me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He lays me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. And so there's this notion of the bishop or the priest leading people towards uplift rather than comfort. And this uplift takes them to a new level of prosperity. And this prosperity becomes the platform by which they can even build upon further prosperity. And if it continues in that trajectory, is how a golden age ends up being created. And should the priesthood lose sight of that mandate, that mission, and should those institutions be unable or stop serving that function, then you shift from the golden age and being on the up, then you shift now into a series of decay, and subversion now can flow to the other institutions. I do think, and I'm pretty much persuaded, that the priestly class and the church protects the spirit of the people. It's that which encodes and embodies that which make a people great. And as long as that animating spirit is maintained, the empire lasts only as far as that spirit can be maintained and protected. And that's how I think a proper functioning priesthood would look like. And that also ties in, it has an interesting political implication. If we need to start on a foundation that is about uplift over comfort, that shouldn't that change our politics and how we do our politics? And I think this is what that has drawn me to the whole idea of the right wing. And when I compare the political agenda, the universal agenda of what's considered left wing and what's considered right wing, I think the right wing vision is the right one. because it is through the right-wing path thereby we create golden ages. But then it is through the left-wing path that we create generations of, like, we create that era of decadence. Hopefully this will be of value to you and would help you when you're looking to get into the other side of the current socio-political reality that we have. This would be a first step. How can you restore the priestly class of your people if you are so inclined? What should you be looking out for? What type of institutions should you invest in if we look to recapture the spirit of your people? Have a good day.